In this video, we are going to be discussing some different types of fan behavior. The first of these is the adoption of a distinctive mode of reception. Scholars argue that most people, when they select a film or TV show or performer they want to watch or listen to, they're often making those decisions based on availability. What is on, what is in the theater. Fans, though, are more purposeful in their consumption. They're attentive to the forthcoming arrival of a favorite text, so they know when their favorite movie is going to come out or when a TV show they're interested in is going to be on. They're often the first to buy tickets or buy a newly released Blu-ray or DVD. We've probably all heard stories about fans camping out for a movie to come out or waiting in line for a midnight release of a video game that they're interested in. And fans are also very faithful in their watching of serialized content, like TV shows. They watch the show every week. If they're watching stuff on streaming, when the new season comes out, they binge it over that weekend. And so they're very faithful viewers. They'll often rewatch as well. Fans rewatch their same favorite stuff over and over again. Again, it's not that fans don't consume any other kind of media or that you're trying to consume everything that way, but again, if you're trying to think about what are you a fan of, think of the movies, the TV shows you watch over and over again. Currently, the world record for watching a movie the most is set by a Welsh woman named Mira Franklin, who has seen The Sound of Music 940 times. There's also rules that determine fan behavior when they are consuming media. Fans are usually very strict about things like not talking during the movie or during the TV show. Fans also engage in routine responses to the material. There are fans of movies like Rocky Horror Picture Show or The Room that will go to these midnight screenings of the movies, and there's all these things you're supposed to do. You're supposed to yell something out at different times. You're supposed to do certain choreography during a dance. You're supposed to throw things at the screen during particular moments. And so fans develop those kinds of behaviors during their reception. The second of these fan behaviors is the constitution of a particular interpretive community. Fans usually have a well-developed network of colleagues, other fans that are also interested in the same stuff that they talk with a lot. These groups discuss and debate and teach newcomers about how to watch their favorite stuff, how to consume media. And so you'll have comic book fans that tell new fans, oh, you got to start here, you got to at least go back to this issue of a Batman comic to really know the story. Or if someone wants to get into a certain type of video game, maybe like, well, you gotta go play this game first. You can't really understand or get good at this game without having played the other stuff. You can't just jump in here, that kind of thing. And so fans within their communities try to teach other fans, especially newer fans, how to consume media, what the best practices are. They negotiate readings of text within their community. They talk about how everyone's responding to a particular text. They're often trying to find coherency. They want to resolve textual contradictions. So they want to work out how some new event that's happened connects to what's happened in the past. And there are differences in how fans can read the same object, and that often leads to a lot of debate. But the individual fan is still trying to understand what is happening. And so, as we've talked about in the past, one thing that draws fans to certain kinds of media is their attraction to certain texts or certain kinds of performances. And so there is the assumption here that fans are semi-purposeful in their consumption, that they are making choices about why they're consuming certain kinds of media. So they're not just going along with the flow. The third type of fan behavior is the constitution of a base of consumer activism. This is most common among fans when a particular text is unfinished, often because it's delivered or distributed serially. So this goes back pretty far. Reviewers of Charles Dickens's novels that were released serially. The novel wasn't just produced as one book, it was a series of short stories, chapter by chapter, published in newspapers, and reviewers and fans would try to predict what was going to happen in a book, and then Dickens would respond by changing the text. And so in that way, these people are kind of being consumer activists. They're trying to influence the text itself. There's also been examples in contemporary fandom of consumers engaging in this kind of activism. Star Trek fandom, for example, has long been involved in these kinds of campaigns. When the original Star Trek was on the air in the 1960s, the creator, Gene Roddenberry, could marshal up a whole group of fans to campaign for the show to continue. Even into the 90s and early 2000s, fans would send in all kinds of letters and stuff to the studios to get them to keep making the TV shows. There was a campaign for a CBS show called Jericho in the mid-2000s. It was this post-apocalyptic wasteland show. And there were rumors that the show was going to end after one season, and the fans got upset about it, and they wanted it to stay on the air. So they started mailing bags of peanuts to the company that made the show, because peanuts were one of the main foods the characters ate. And apparently they mailed enough peanuts that the producers decided to make another season. It only lasted for one more season after that, but the fans had an impact. And so activism is another of those behaviors that fans often engage in. Probably the type of behavior fans are most associated with right now is the next one, which is constituting a particular art world. And so fans make stuff. They don't just consume material, they also are producers. And so they do make stuff in sort of the constraints of the universe itself, but they are making original materials. And part of this behavior is expressing just your love and devotion to these characters, to this story, but it's also through things like fan fiction about expanding the possibilities of the kinds of stories that can be told. A particularly popular form of fan fiction for decades now has been what's known as slash fiction. And it's called slash fiction because this kind of fan fiction is often about the pairing of two characters within a show, and often characters that aren't officially romantically linked. It wouldn't be a very entertaining story if you just wrote about Edward and Bella falling in love in a Twilight fanfiction. There are plenty of those, but instead, slash fiction is often about taking new pairings. The classic one in the 1970s was pairing Kirk and Spock from the Star Trek series, and so the slash comes from it was to be written as Kirk slash Spock, and so the slash was used to indicate that the two characters were paired, and so slash fiction became the name here. And so Kirk and Spock were an original pairing, but this would be stories. And if instead of writing about Edward and Bella falling in love in Twilight, you wrote about Edward and Jacob falling in love. And one of the arguments about this kind of fan fiction, what it does is it allows fans to expand on the possibilities presented in the work itself. There's never going to be a story where Kirk and Spock actually fall in love in the official TV shows or movies or something. And there's often not a lot of LGBT material in these kinds of productions, and so fans often look to the fan fiction and their own materials as a way of expanding those possibilities. If you look on the PowerPoint, there are some examples of different kinds of fan creations. The first is cosplay. Fans dressing up in the costumes of their favorite characters. We can see a few examples. Star Trek was one of the first popular shows to cosplay, mostly because the costumes themselves are fairly easy to make, especially of the original Star Trek crew. There are some Batman cosplayers. You also see some Star Wars, a whole group of Princess Leia cosplayers, and then Disney cosplayers. But also included some examples of sports fans dressed up in costumes and face paint and stuff for their favorite teams, just as a reminder that these kind of behaviors are not exclusive to pop culture fans. Also, you also see some examples of fan art. These are just paintings, artworks done of the characters themselves. You have an example from the Legend of Zelda video games and one from Harry Potter. And then I've included some links to different fan videos in the PowerPoint. So these are a variety of different kinds of videos, retellings of stories, new takes on them, taking the characters and doing them in a different style, things like that. So take a look at those if you're interested. But that's probably one of the behaviors that fans are most associated with nowadays. The next of our types of behaviors is extension of fan partialities into everyday life. Fans often fill their houses with fan-related material. Their collections, kind of like my anime stuff back here, is a part of the physical world for fans. But collecting is not the only way. We talked in the Coldry reading about people traveling to movie studios to see where their favorite show is made, or going to places like Atlanta to go on a Gone with the Wind tour or something. And so people take their fiction seriously, so fandom extends beyond just the consuming of the text itself to being part of people's everyday lives. I've included some examples, some collectors for pop culture fans. So a guy with his Star Wars collection, and then a whole cabinets full of anime and video games and stuff. But also, again, reminders about sports fans. Sports is another thing that people decorate their homes as. I've got a picture in the PowerPoint of a couple who decorated one of their rooms all in Dallas Cowboys material. Even for a while, the NFL was selling officially branded paint, so you could get the official team colors if you wanted the specific blue and silver that the Cowboys use, or the green and yellow that the Packers use or something. You can get officially branded paint for all the NFL teams, whatever your favorite team was. And then the final kind of, or type of fan behavior we want to talk about is the constitution of an alternative social community. So fans often seek out groups, other fans that they can connect with. And Jenkins, who Staiger is referencing here, specifically uses the term alternative community rather than subculture or counterculture to imply that it's an alternative community. It's just people finding an alternative to mainstream communities rather than being subordinate to these groups. So group interactions and shared activities are a big part of a lot of fan behaviors. And the internet has added another medium for fans to engage in this behavior. So you can go online and have these kind of conversations with other fans, even if you aren't physically present with each other. And often this community is expressed through the ways fans talk. There's a few kinds of talk among fans that we want to mention real quickly. The first of these is commentary. So these are statements made by viewers about what they find pleasurable, displeasurable, satisfying, irritating. So this is a way of establishing the interpretive community, opens the door for mutual self-disclosure. This is what I love about this show. Oh, I hated when this happened. This is often expressed in a lot of conversion stories, people talking about what drew them to this show in the first place. And so this kind of commentary establishes group norms and can also lead to inclusion and exclusion of members if you don't have the right kind of story about getting into the show. The second kind of talk is speculation. So this is gossip about a program, so talking about what's going to happen in the future, where the story is going to go. Fans often try to draw on extra textual knowledge here. They will look at reports on what's going on the set. They'll look for photos, that kind of stuff, to be able to predict what's going to happen. The next kind of talk is a couple that are related, report and then diffusion. So people ask for information, who can tell me about this, and then others receive that information. So you report what is the answer to somebody's question, and it's diffused out to the larger community. And such exchanges allow for creations of obligations and status. So if you're the one that always has all the answers, you're of higher status. And then recognition is the last of these kinds of talk. This is use of catchphrases, insider knowledge, trivia, that kind of stuff, to identify what would indicate a true fan. So this is something that fans just do amongst themselves. They like telling jokes. They repeat lines and phrases from their favorite movies or their favorite shows. And it's a sort of inside joke kind of thing. We all know what's going on. We have experienced this stuff together. But again, it can also be one of those things that can be used to exclude people. If you don't get the joke, then you might be excluded. And communities are important in fandom, but they do take on the features of a lot of social units. Individuals often adopt group roles. There's often a hierarchy of status that develops. One of the things that often leads to status in a group is knowledge or information about the text, knowledge of group norms and their history, adherence to group taste preferences, leadership and group activities. All these kind of stuff confer status. And so there's often a lot of policing of the norms, making sure everybody's kind of following along. And so there's just some different types of fan behavior.